Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole. It is Sunday afternoon, November 27th. And now that we're back from Thanksgiving break, we're entering week 6 of Political Science 1013 on the 8-week term. The second 8 weeks for fall 22. We have an exam coming up Friday. This is our third exam, third out of 4. The final exam will be coming up 11 days or so after exam 3, which we will take this Friday, December 2nd. Now, the material for exam 3 is Unit 5 on the presidency and Unit 6 on the federal bureaucracy. Now, we've done Unit 5 pretty much. We had talked about it before. Let me say just a few words about your class notes for Unit 6, which is a very short unit. Basically, there are a couple of things we try to do in Unit 6. Number one, we set out, first of all, to describe the federal bureaucracy with the couple of million federal employees, 2 or 3 million, who work for the civilian and military branches of the United States federal government. It's sometimes referred to as the fourth branch of government, although technically speaking on the organizational chart, most of it would come under the purview of the executive branch. But it is so big and unwieldy that it is difficult to supervise and control, and that's one reason why it's sometimes referred to as the fourth branch of government. There are 15 cabinet-level departments, and there are many other entities that are not part of any cabinet-level department. There are government corporations, and there are independent entities, including independent regulatory commissions. And sometimes the regulatory commissions are especially controversial. Okay, so there are many different kinds of bureaucratic entities within the federal government. The biggest are the cabinet-level departments, although not every cabinet-level department is equally big. The Department of Defense is huge. The Department of Education, the Department of Energy are not nearly so large. In fact, there are independent agencies that are bigger than those departments in terms of money spent and the number of people employed. So we try to lay out the different bureaucratic units of the federal government. And then we discuss the difficulty of exercising political control over the bureaucracy. Okay? Very often bureaucrats will defy the president. Okay? Many bureaucrats, all the way up to agency and department heads, high-ranking bureaucrats, are in closer contact with their employees and those that they serve than with the president, or even the secretary of their department if they're in a cabinet-level department. And so their loyalty to the political appointees and elected officials at the top of the chart may be limited. And the president especially may find it difficult to get bureaucrats to adhere to the president's priorities rather than their own priorities. And some people think there's a reason for believing so, that this poses more of a problem for Republican than for Democratic presidents, because generally government activity is expanded under Democratic presidents, so they're fine with growth of the democracy, of the bureaucracy. Republican presidents will be more uneasy about allowing the bureaucracy to burgeon and to grow. Okay? And they will very often seek to rein in the bureaucracy and bring it under control and bring it to heel, if you will. That brings us to your readings for exam 3. You have one very lengthy article about the Biden administration so far. It's a feature article from the Washington Post. You have an article about whether Biden ought to run again. Students may have heard he's just turned 80 years old. And there are concerns being raised about whether he ought to run again. He may or may not. Then finally, you have an article from the Wall Street Journal. Remember, you've been sent instructions on how to access material from the Wall Street Journal. This article is entitled, "The President Needs to Be Able to Fire Bureaucrats," or words to that effect. Now, there's a report out going back a couple of months ago that Donald Trump, if he's reelected, the first thing he plans to do, one of the first, is to fire about 50,000 bureaucrats. He will create a new classification for them that will make them easier to fire. He will move about 50,000 people into that classification and then perhaps fire most or all of them. Students might have heard Donald Trump on the campaign trail would say that we need to drain the swamp, and something like that it perhaps is what Trump thinks may be necessary to drain the swamp, if you will. So bringing the bureaucracy under control has been a major priority and a major headache for presidents, perhaps Republican presidents especially. So you'll be reading about that, and you'll be reading an argument about it in an editorial commentary from the Wall Street Journal, going back really just a few weeks ago. So that's the third of three things to look at for the exam on Friday, exam 3 that we will take Friday, December 2nd. Okay. 3 things to read, one about the Biden presidency, another about whether Biden should run again, and one about the president being able to fire bureaucrats. Okay, so we talked about Unit 5 before. In Unit 6, again, what we're trying to do is lay out the various units of the federal bureaucracy and discuss the difficulties presidents may have about bringing the bureaucracy under political control. All right then, everybody. The exam will be on Friday, okay, and we'll be looking very quickly at Congress and the Supreme Court for the final exam after that, and I'll have a bit more to say about that when I speak to you a week from now at this time. So study hard for the exam on Friday. Look at the class notes for Units 5 and 6 and the 3 readings you've been assigned. And I wish everybody good luck on that, and we'll speak to you once again a week from now at this time. Okay. Remember about term papers. Term papers can help raise your grade. They're not mandatory, but if you're thinking of doing one, it's time to get in touch with Dr. Cole about your choice of topic. So study hard for the exam. We'll take the exam Friday, and we'll talk to you once again about a week from now at this time.